The rain came down hard on the metal roof of the repair shop. Jake Sullivan wiped his dirty hands on an old rag and looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight, and he was tired. His back hurt from bending over broken machines all day. The small shop on Terminus 7 was not much, but it was his. He fixed things for the miners and farmers who lived on this colony world. The pay was not great, but it was honest work. Jake locked the front door and turned off the lights. His small apartment was right above the shop, which made life easy. He did not have to travel far after a long day. The rain was getting worse, and thunder rolled across the sky. He pulled his jacket tight and walked around the building to reach the stairs. That was when he heard it. A small sound like crying, but not quite human. It came from the dark alley beside his shop. Jake stopped and listened. There it was again, a sad whimpering noise that made his heart hurt. He should have gone inside. This was a rough part of the colony, and smart people did not go looking for trouble in dark alleys at night. But Jake was not the type to ignore someone in need. He pulled out his small flashlight and walked into the alley. The beam of light cut through the darkness and rain. He saw the dumpster first, then movement behind it. Something small and alive was hiding there. Jake moved closer, his boots splashing in puddles. He knelt down and pointed the light behind the dumpster. What he saw made him freeze. Two small creatures huddled together in the corner. They had scales that caught the light and made it dance in colors he had never seen before. Their wings were folded against their bodies, soaked from the rain. They were shaking from cold and fear. These were not animals. Jake had seen pictures and videos before. These were dragons. Real dragons from the Dragen Empire, the powerful civilization that ruled over millions of worlds across the galaxy. But these dragons were tiny, no bigger than cats. Their eyes were wide with fear, but also with intelligence. These were children. Jake's mind raced. What were two dragon children doing alone in an alley on a human colony world? Where were their parents? How did they get here? None of that mattered right now. What mattered was that they were cold, wet, scared, and probably starving. The smaller dragon had copper-colored scales that looked dull from hunger. The larger one had silver-blue scales and tried to protect its companion, even though it was clearly weak. When Jake reached out his hand, the larger dragon made a small hissing sound, but it had no strength behind it. "Hey, it's okay," Jake said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. You look hungry. Do you want some food?" The copper dragon let out a weak chirping sound. Its eyes were so sad that Jake felt his throat tighten. He made a decision. He reached out and carefully picked up both creatures. They were light, too light. Their bones felt fragile under his hands. The silver-blue dragon tried to struggle, but it was too weak. The copper one just curled into Jake's chest, seeking warmth. Jake carried them inside quickly, not wanting anyone to see. If people knew he had dragon children, there would be questions. Big questions, the kind that brought trouble from both human authorities and the Dragen Empire. But he could not leave them to die in the rain. Inside his apartment, Jake grabbed some towels and dried them off gently. Their scales felt strange under his hands, smooth but somehow warm despite the cold rain. He laid them on his couch and covered them with a blanket. Then he went to his small kitchen and looked for food. What did baby dragons eat? He had no idea. Jake opened his emergency supply cabinet and pulled out packages of synthesized protein. It was bland stuff meant for survival situations, but it had all the nutrients a body needed. He mixed it with water to make it softer and brought it to the couch. The dragons watched him with those intelligent eyes. The copper one sniffed the food, then looked up at Jake as if asking permission. He nodded and smiled. "Go ahead. Eat as much as you want." What happened next surprised him. The two dragons ate like they had not seen food in days, maybe weeks. They made small, happy sounds as they devoured everything he gave them. Jake kept bringing more until finally they slowed down and stopped. Their bellies were round and they looked much better already. The silver-blue dragon looked at Jake for a long moment. Then it did something unexpected. It bowed its head just slightly, in what looked like gratitude. The copper dragon chirped and nuzzled against Jake's hand. "You're welcome," Jake said quietly. He sat in his old chair and watched them. "I guess you need names. Can't just call you Dragon 1 and Dragon 2. He thought for a moment. The copper dragon reminded him of glowing embers in a fire. "How about Ember for you?" The dragon chirped happily. Jake smiled and looked at the silver-blue one. Its scales reminded him of frost on a winter morning back on Earth. "And Frost for you?" The larger dragon considered this, then nodded slowly. It could understand him. These children were smart, maybe smarter than human children of the same age. Ember and Frost curled up together on the couch, the blanket wrapped around them. Their eyes started to close. Jake watched them fall asleep, their breathing deep and peaceful. He wondered what he had gotten himself into. Harboring dragon children could bring serious trouble. The Dragon Empire did not take kindly to anyone who interfered with their people, even to help. But as he looked at the two sleeping children, safe and warm and fed, Jake knew he had made the right choice. Tomorrow he would figure out what to do. Tonight they just needed to rest. He turned off the lights and went to his bedroom, but he left his door open. If they woke up scared in a strange place, he wanted to hear them. As he lay in bed listening to the rain, Jake Sullivan had no idea that he had just changed the course of his life forever. He did not know that these two small dragons were royalty, stolen and lost. He did not know that an empress searched the galaxy for them. All he knew was that two children needed help and he gave it. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. This was one of those times. The first year was the hardest. Jake woke up every morning worried that someone would discover Ember and Frost. He taught them to hide when customers came to the shop. He built a secret room in the basement where they could stay safe if anyone came looking. The colony world of Terminus 7 was far from the center of human civilization, and people here minded their own business. But two dragon children were hard to hide. Ember and Frost grew quickly in those early months. By the end of the first year, they were the size of large dogs. Jake had to buy more food, which meant spending more money. He took extra jobs, worked longer hours, and sometimes skipped meals himself to make sure they had enough. But he never complained. When Ember would look at him with worried eyes, he would just smile and tell her everything was fine. The dragons learned fast. By their second year, they started speaking in broken human standard language. Jake would sit with them every evening, teaching them words and helping them practice. Frost was serious and focused, repeating words until he got them perfect. Ember was playful and curious, asking questions about everything she saw. "Why do humans need machines?" Ember asked one day while Jake worked on a mining drill. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because we're not as strong as some other species. Machines help us do more work with less effort." "But you work very hard," Frost observed. "You work all day and night sometimes." Jake laughed. "Yeah, well, someone's got to pay for all that food you two eat." Ember looked sad. "We are burdened to you." "No," Jake said firmly, putting down his tools. He knelt beside them. "You're not a burden. You're family. Family takes care of each other. That's how it works." "What is family?" Frost asked. "We do not remember ours." Jake felt his heart break a little. These children had lost everything. Family is people who care about you, people who want you to be safe and happy, people who will protect you no matter what. By the third year, Ember and Frost were as tall as Jake's waist when they stood on all four legs. They could speak clearly now with only a slight accent. They had also started developing their own personalities and skills. Ember loved the machines in Jake's shop. She would watch him work for hours, learning how engines functioned and how to fix broken parts. Her claws were surprisingly gentle when handling delicate components. Frost was different. He liked organizing things. He created a system for Jake's messy shop, putting tools in their proper places and keeping track of inventory. He was also a strategic thinker. When Jake had problems with difficult customers, Frost would suggest ways to handle the situation that usually worked perfectly. "You two are going to make me look bad," Jake joked one evening. "Pretty soon you'll be running this shop better than I ever did." "We learned from watching you," Ember said proudly. "You are a good teacher." The fourth year brought new challenges. Ember and Frost were now the size of ponies. Jake had to expand their secret room to give them more space. They could not go outside anymore during the day. People would definitely notice two horse-sized dragons walking around. So they stayed hidden, and Jake felt guilty about keeping them locked up. But Ember and Frost never complained. They spent their days reading books Jake brought them, practicing their language skills and helping him with work they could do in secret. At night, when the shop was closed, Jake would take them to the roof. They would sit together under the stars, and Jake would tell them stories about Earth and the other places he had been. "Do you think our real family is looking for us?" Ember asked one night. Jake did not know what to say. He had wondered the same thing for years. Who were these dragons? Where did they come from? Why were they alone? but he had been too afraid to search for answers. If he started asking questions, someone might find them. "I'm sure they are," Jake said finally. "If I lost you two, I would search forever to find you." "But we are not your real children," Frost said quietly. Jake looked at both of them. "Maybe not by blood, but you're my kids in every way that matters. I raised you. I taught you. I watched you grow. That makes you mine and me yours." Ember nuzzled against his shoulder. "We love you, Jake. I love you too, kid. Both of you." The 5th year arrived faster than Jake expected. Ember and Frost were now massive, standing as tall as his chest when on all fours. Their scales had grown more beautiful with age. Ember's copper scales shimmered like metal in firelight. Frost's silver blue scales looked like frozen starlight. They were magnificent creatures, and Jake was proud of them. They had become his partners in the shop. Ember could diagnose problems with machines just by listening to their sounds. Frost managed the business side, handling schedules and accounts. Together, the three of them made a good team. Jake's little repair shop was doing better than it ever had, but Jake knew this could not last forever. Ember and Frost were too big to hide much longer, and they deserved more than a secret life in a basement. They deserved to fly free, to be with their own kind, to have a real future. The thought of losing them hurt more than anything Jake had ever felt, but he loved them too much to be selfish. "Jake, what's wrong?" Frost asked one evening. "You have been sad for days," Jake sighed. "I've been thinking. You two are growing up. You need more than I can give you here. You need to find where you belong." "We belong here," Ember said firmly. "With you. You don't understand. You're dragons. You should be flying free, not hiding in a basement. You should be with others like you." "I can't give you that. We don't want that," Frost said. "We want this." "We want you," Jake smiled sadly. "For now, maybe. But someday you'll need more. And when that day comes, I'll help you find it. That's what family does." Neither of them argued further, but Jake could see they were upset. That night, as they slept, Jake sat in his chair and watched them. 5 years had passed since that rainy night. 5 years of hiding and worrying and working hard. 5 years of the best moments of his life. These two dragons had given him purpose and joy he never knew he needed. But deep in his heart, Jake knew something was coming. He could feel it like a storm on the horizon. The universe had a way of balancing things out. He had kept this secret for 5 years, but secrets never lasted forever. Somewhere out there, someone was looking for Ember and Frost. And sooner or later, they would find them. Jake just hoped that when they did, he would be strong enough to do what was right, even if it broke his heart. Because that was what family did. They made the hard choices. They put the ones they loved first, and they never stopped protecting them no matter what it cost. The morning started like any other morning. Jake was working on a broken harvester engine when he noticed the light change. The sunshine that had been streaming through the shop windows suddenly disappeared. He looked up and saw a shadow covering everything. His heart stopped. A ship was descending from the sky. But this was not a normal ship. It was huge and beautiful, with smooth curves and strange symbols painted on its hull. The metal looked like it was made from liquid silver and gold mixed together. Jake had never seen anything like it. He did not need to ask what kind of ship it was. He knew. This was a dragon vessel. "Ember! Frost!" Jake shouted, dropping his tools. "Get to the hideout now." But before he could move, 2 dragons emerged from the back room. They walked slowly, their heads held high. Ember's copper scales gleamed in what little light came through the windows. Frost's silver blue scales seemed to glow with inner strength. They looked calm, almost regal. "No, Jake," Frost said in his deep voice. "We will not hide anymore. If they have found us, we face them together." "Are you crazy?" Jake ran to them. "These are your people. They might take you away. They might hurt me for keeping you. We need to hide." Ember shook her head. "We are done hiding. We are done being afraid. If they come for us, they come for all of us. We stand together." Jake wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in their eyes. These were not the scared children he had found 5 years ago. They had grown strong and brave. He felt proud and terrified at the same time. The ship landed in the street outside the shop. The whole building shook from the force. Jake heard people shouting and running. The entire colony was probably watching now. He walked to the front of the shop with Ember and Frost beside him. His legs felt weak, but he would not show fear. If these were his last moments, he would face them with courage. The ship's door opened. 6 dragons stepped out, each one wearing armor that looked like it was made from starlight. They were massive, much bigger than Ember and Frost. Their scales were different colors: red, gold, green, black, white, and purple. But the one in front was the most impressive. His scales were deep crimson, like fresh blood. His eyes burned with intelligence and power. This was clearly their leader. The crimson dragon walked toward the shop. His claws made clicking sounds on the street. The other 5 followed behind him, moving in perfect formation. They were soldiers, elite soldiers. Jake swallowed hard. The crimson dragon stopped in front of the shop. His eyes swept over Jake, then moved to Ember and Frost. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Surprise? Jake could not tell. Jake Sullivan. The dragon's voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. You stand accused of harboring imperial royalty without authorization. You have hidden the children of Empress Kalara for 5 years. The penalty for such an offense is death. Jake's blood turned to ice. Imperial royalty? Empress Kalara? These were not just dragon children. They were the children of the Dragon Empress herself, the ruler of the entire Dragon Empire. Jake suddenly felt very small and very stupid, but he also felt angry. These soldiers did not know what he had been through. They did not know how he found Ember and Frost starving in the rain. They did not know about the 5 years of love and care. They did not know anything. Jake stepped forward, placing himself between the guards and the 2 dragons. They were dying when I found them. 2 scared kids left alone in the rain with no food and no shelter. I gave them what they needed to survive. If that's a crime in your empire, then your empress should be ashamed. The silence that followed was complete. Nobody moved. The other 5 guards looked shocked. Apparently, humans did not usually talk to the empress's commander like this. Jake did not care. If he was going to die, he would die telling the truth. The Crimson Dragon studied Jake with new interest. You know who they are now, yet you still defend them? I know they're Ember and Frost, Jake said firmly. I know they're good kids who work hard and care about others. I know they've learned honor and kindness and the value of helping people. Beyond that, titles don't mean anything to me. Ember moved to stand beside Jake. Commander Varix, this human saved our lives. When we would have died alone and forgotten, he took us in. He asked for nothing. He gave us everything. He taught us what it means to be good. If you pass judgment on him, you pass it on us too. Frost joined his sister on Jake's other side. We choose to stand with him. Whatever comes, we face it together. Commander Varix looked at the 3 of them standing together. Jake could see the dragon thinking, weighing options, making decisions. Finally, the commander did something Jake did not expect. He lowered his massive head in what looked like a bow. Prince Frost, Princess Ember, Varix said formally. Your mother, Empress Kalara, has searched for you for 5 years. Every corner of the galaxy has been examined. Every world has been questioned. She never gave up hope. She will be filled with joy to know you are alive and well. Prince and Princess. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. These were not just royalty. They were the direct children of the Empress, the heirs to the throne, and he had been making them help fix mining equipment and do inventory. Varix raised his head and looked at Jake again. Jake Sullivan, you will come with us. The Empress wishes to meet the human who raised her children. She will decide your fate personally. Jake's mouth went dry. Meeting the Empress of the Dragon Empire was not something humans usually survived, but he nodded. Fine, just promise me they'll be safe. Whatever happens to me, promise they won't be punished. We would never punish them, Varix said. They are beloved royalty, but your fate is uncertain. The Empress can be merciful, but she can also be harsh. You have kept her children from her for 5 years. That is not something easily forgiven. I didn't know who they were, Jake protested. If I had known, I would have found a way to contact you. Would you? Varix asked. Or would you have kept them because you love them? Jake opened his mouth, then closed it. He did not know the answer. By the time he learned how smart and special Ember and Frost were, he already loved them. Would he have given them up, even knowing they were royalty? He honestly did not know. Come, Varix commanded. The Empress is waiting. We have wasted 5 years searching. We will not waste another moment. Ember grabbed Jake's hand with her claws, gentle despite their size. Don't worry, Jake. We will not let anything happen to you. You are family. Family protects each other. Frost nodded. Mother will understand. She has to. Jake was not so sure, but he let them lead him to the ship. The other guards formed a circle around them. As they walked, Jake looked back at his shop one last time. The building where he had spent so many years working and living. The place where he had raised 2 dragon children in secret. He wondered if he would ever see it again. The ship's interior was as beautiful as its exterior. Everything gleamed and shimmered. Jake felt completely out of place in his dirty work clothes. But Ember and Frost stayed close to him, and their presence gave him strength. Whatever came next, they would face it together, just like family should. The journey to the Dragon homeworld took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time in a guest room on the ship. The room was bigger than his entire apartment back on Terminus 7. Everything was made from materials he could not identify. The bed was so comfortable it felt like sleeping on a cloud, but Jake could not enjoy any of it. His mind was too busy worrying about what would happen when they arrived. Ember visited him every few hours, bringing food and checking on him. The food was strange but good. Jake ate without really tasting anything. His stomach was tied in knots. Frost came by too, usually in the evenings. He would sit with Jake and talk about what to expect. Our mother is strong, Frost explained. She rules over billions of beings across thousands of worlds. But she is also fair. She will listen to what you have to say. And what do I say? Jake asked. Sorry I kept your kids for 5 years? I didn't mean to, but they were just so adorable. Frost made a sound that might have been a laugh. Tell her the truth. That is all you can do. Mother values honesty above all else. On the 3rd day, they arrived at Piraxis, the Dragon homeworld. Jake looked out the window and could not believe his eyes. The planet seemed to glow from within. Cities covered the surface, each one more beautiful than anything humans had ever built. And in the center of the largest continent stood a mountain that reached into the clouds. But it was not a natural mountain. It was the Imperial Palace. The palace was carved from something that looked like crystal and starlight mixed together. It caught the sun and threw rainbow colors across the sky. Towers and spires reached upward like fingers trying to touch the stars. Jake had seen pictures of impressive buildings before, but nothing compared to this. It was beyond description. The ship landed on a platform near the top of the palace. Jake's legs felt weak as he walked down the ramp. Guards were everywhere, hundreds of them, all in gleaming armor. Dragons of every color and size filled the courtyard. And every single one of them stopped what they were doing to stare. Jake heard whispers spreading through the crowd like wind through grass. The lost children. The prince and princess. They've come home. Jake tried to ignore the stares and focused on walking. Ember stayed on his left side, Frost on his right. Commander Varix led them forward. They entered the palace through doors that must have been 50 feet tall. The inside was even more impressive than the outside. Halls stretched in every direction, each one bigger than any building Jake had ever been inside. The walls showed images that moved and changed, telling stories of the Dragon Empire's history. The ceiling was so high Jake could barely see it. Dragons filled every hall. Rich dragons in fancy clothes, warrior dragons in armor, scholar dragons carrying books and tablets. All of them stopped and bowed as Ember and Frost passed. Jake felt more out of place with every step. He was just a mechanic from a frontier colony world. What was he doing in a place like this? Finally, they reached a set of massive golden doors. 2 guards pulled them open, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. The throne room was enormous. It could have held his entire colony settlement with room to spare. Pillars of crystal held up the ceiling. The floor was made from polished stone that reflected light like a mirror. And at the far end, sitting on a throne of gold and silver, was the Empress. Empress Kalara was massive. She was easily 3 times the size of Commander Varix. Her scales were a perfect blend of copper and silver blue, just like her children. Her wings were folded behind her, but Jake could tell they were huge. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. Just looking at her made Jake want to kneel, but what struck him most were her eyes. They were ancient, filled with wisdom and pain and strength. These were the eyes of someone who had ruled for centuries, who had made terrible decisions and lived with them, who had lost things that could never be replaced. Jake felt those eyes looking into his soul, seeing everything he was and everything he had ever done. Ember and Frost suddenly broke away from Jake and ran forward. The Empress stood up from her throne with a cry that shook the walls. She descended from the platform and opened her wings wide. Ember and Frost crashed into her and she wrapped them in her embrace. The three of them held each other while the Empress made sounds of joy and relief and grief all mixed together. Jake stood back, feeling like he was intruding on something private. This was their family reunion. He did not belong here. But then Frost pulled away from the embrace and looked back at him. "Mother, there is someone you must meet. Someone important." The Empress released her children and turned her attention to Jake. He had never felt so small in his entire life. She moved toward him, each step making the floor tremble slightly. When she stood before him, Jake had to tilt his head back just to see her face. One of her claws was bigger than his entire body. She could crush him without effort. Jake Sullivan, the Empress's voice was surprisingly gentle, like distant music. "My children were stolen from me during the darkest hour of my reign. Traitors attacked the palace and took them while I fought to save my throne. I searched every corner of the galaxy. I sent ships to every world. I offered rewards that could buy entire star systems. And yet they survived not because of my vast power or endless resources, but because of one human with a kind heart." Jake swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I didn't know who they were. I just found them in an alley during a rainstorm. They were starving and scared. I couldn't leave them there. And when you learned they could speak and think? When you realized they were intelligent beings?" "I loved them by then," Jake admitted. "They were my kids. I couldn't give them up." The Empress lowered her massive head until her eyes were level with his. Jake could see himself reflected in them. "Commander Varix told me you defended them even when facing the Imperial Guard. That you placed yourself between my elite soldiers and my children. That you refused to let them face judgment alone. Is this true?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "Why?" "Because that's what family does," Jake said simply. "You protect the people you love no matter what, even if it means standing against an empire." Something shifted in the Empress's expression. Her eyes grew softer. "Tell me, Jake Sullivan, what did you teach my children during these 5 years?" Jake thought about it. "I taught them how to fix machines, how to work hard and be honest, how to treat others with respect, how to stand up for what's right, how to be brave even when you're scared. Basic stuff, really. Basic stuff," the Empress repeated. "You taught the heirs to the Dragon throne how to work with their hands, how to be humble, how to value kindness over power. Do you understand how rare these lessons are for royalty?" "I just taught them what my father taught me," Jake said. "Good values don't change based on who you are." The Empress straightened up to her full height. She looked at her children, then back at Jake. "Jake Sullivan, by law I should punish you. You kept my children from me for 5 years. You hid them from my search. You interfered with the imperial family. The punishment for such crimes is severe." Jake's heart sank. He had known this was coming, but hearing it still hurt. At least he had given Ember and Frost 5 good years. At least they were home now, safe with their mother. That was worth whatever happened to him. "However," the Empress continued, "I am not only a ruler, I am also a mother. And as a mother, I can only feel gratitude to the man who saved my children when I could not. You gave them love, safety, and a childhood they deserved. You asked nothing in return. You protected them even at risk to yourself. These are not the actions of a criminal. These are the actions of a hero." Jake blinked. "I'm not a hero, Your Majesty. I'm just a mechanic who did what anyone should do." "That is what makes you a hero," the Empress said. "True heroes never see themselves as special. They simply do what is right because it is right." The next day, Empress Kalara called Jake to a private meeting in her personal chambers. The room was smaller than the throne room, but still larger than anything Jake was used to. Windows looked out over the capital city below. Ember and Frost were already there, sitting near their mother. "Jake Sullivan," the Empress began, "I have thought long about what to do. You saved my children and raised them well. For this, the Empire owes you a debt that can never truly be repaid. But I must try." She gestured with one massive claw, and a holographic display appeared in the air. Jake saw images of palaces, mountains of gold, vast estates on beautiful worlds. "I can give you wealth beyond imagination. Enough money to buy anything you desire. I can give you land, property on any world you choose. I can give you titles and power. You could become a lord, a governor, a member of my council. Name what you want and it is yours." Jake looked at all the riches being offered. Any one of these gifts could change his life forever. He could live in luxury for the rest of his days. He could have servants and ships and more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. All he had to do was say yes. "I don't want any of that, Your Majesty," Jake said quietly. The Empress tilted her head. "You refuse my gifts? I'm grateful, really. But those things don't matter to me. I just want to know that Ember and Frost are safe and happy. And maybe, if it's allowed, I'd like to still be part of their lives, if that's okay." Ember jumped up, her eyes bright. "You want to stay? You want to still be our family?" "If your mother allows it," Jake said. "I know you have royal duties now. I know you need to learn how to be prince and princess. But yeah, I'd like to stick around." "If you want me to." Frost moved to Jake's side. "Of course we want you. You are our father in all ways that matter." The Empress watched this with an expression Jake could not read. "You truly want nothing for yourself? No reward?" "There is one thing," Jake admitted. "I'm a mechanic. It's what I do, who I am. I'd like to keep working if possible. Maybe I could have a small shop somewhere. Nothing fancy. Just a place where I can fix things." The Empress was quiet for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are either the wisest human I have ever met or the strangest. Very well, you shall have your shop, but not a small one on some forgotten world. You will have the finest workshop on Paraxis, equipped with tools and technology beyond anything you have seen, and you will be named Royal Advisor on Human Affairs. Your Majesty, I don't know anything about being an advisor. You know about being honest and kind and fair. That is all any advisor needs. You will also have permanent custody rights to visit Ember and Frost whenever you wish. They will be free to visit you as well. And one more thing." The Empress stood and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out a crystal tablet with words written in glowing letters. "I am creating a new law, effective immediately across the entire empire. The Treaty of Sullivan, I shall call it. Any being who offers genuine aid and protection to those in need, regardless of species or status, will be granted the Empire's protection and respect. Let it be known that kindness is valued above all else." Jake felt his throat tighten. "Your Majesty, I don't deserve this." "That is exactly why you do deserve it," she replied. "Now come. I will show you your new home." The workshop the Empress provided was incredible. It was built into the side of the palace mountain, with huge windows that let in natural light. The tools were more advanced than anything Jake had dreamed of. There were machines that could analyze problems just by scanning them. There were materials from 100 different worlds. There was even a small living area attached, comfortable and cozy. But the best part was that Ember and Frost could visit whenever they wanted. And they visited often. The first few months were an adjustment. Jake had to learn the customs and rules of palace life. He had to get used to servants who wanted to do everything for him. He had to figure out how to dress properly for formal events. It was all very strange and uncomfortable, but he made it work. His shop became famous across Paraxis, not because he worked on important ships or royal machinery, though he did, but because he treated every customer the same. Rich or poor, powerful or weak, everyone got the same honest service and fair prices. People appreciated that. Ember and Frost adapted to their new lives too. They had tutors who taught them history, politics, military strategy, and everything else a prince and princess needed to know. But they still spent hours in Jake's shop, helping him work and talking about their days. Those were Jake's favorite moments. One evening, about 6 months after arriving on Paraxis, Jake was working on a damaged transport engine when Ember flew in through the open window. She had gotten much better at flying and loved to practice. Frost walked in a few minutes later, his scales gleaming from a recent polish. "Jake, we have something to tell you," Frost said, his voice serious. Jake put down his tools, worried. "What's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Ember said quickly. "But Mother is holding a ceremony next week. She wants to formally recognize you in front of the entire court. She wants to give you an official title and position." Jake groaned. "Do I have to wear one of those fancy outfits?" They're really uncomfortable, Frost laughed. Yes, you have to dress properly. This is important, Jake. Mother is honoring you in front of the most powerful beings in the Empire. It's a big deal. I know. I just feel silly in all that fancy clothing. I'm a mechanic, not a nobleman. You are both, Ember said. You can be a mechanic and still be respected. That's what makes you special. The ceremony was as grand as Jake feared. The throne room was packed with hundreds of dragons and other species from across the Empire. Jake wore formal robes that felt stiff and strange. But when the Empress called him forward and spoke about his bravery and kindness, he felt proud. Not proud of himself exactly, but proud that he had made a difference. After the ceremony, there was a huge feast. Jake was introduced to more important people than he could remember. Generals and admirals and governors and scholars, all wanting to meet the human who raised the royal children. It was overwhelming. Late that night, Jake escaped to the balcony of his workshop. He needed air and quiet. The twin moons of Paraxis hung in the sky, casting silver light over the city below. Jake leaned against the railing and thought about how much his life had changed. There you are, a voice said behind him. Ember landed softly on the balcony, followed by Frost, who used the door. Sorry, I needed a break, Jake said. Too many people. We understand, Frost said. Royal life can be exhausting. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the stars. Finally, Ember spoke. Jake, do you ever regret it? Finding us? Your life would be much simpler if you had just walked past that alley. Jake thought about it. 5 years ago, he had a simple life. He fixed machines, paid his bills, and went to bed tired every night. It was predictable and safe. Then 2 small dragons changed everything. Now he lived in a palace on an alien world, wore fancy clothes, and attended ceremonies with empresses and generals. I had a good life before, Jake said slowly. It was quiet and peaceful. But then 2 scared kids needed help, and I couldn't ignore that. These past 5 years, raising you 2, watching you grow, being your dad, those have been the best years of my life. I wouldn't trade them for anything. Ember nuzzled against his shoulder, careful not to knock him over with her size. We're grateful, for everything. Not just for saving us, but for loving us, for teaching us, for being there. You don't need to thank me, Jake said. That's what family does. We take care of each other. We will always be family, Frost said firmly. No matter what happens, no matter how much time passes, that will never change. I know, Jake replied. And I'll always be here when you need me. Even when you're busy ruling the Empire someday, you can always come to my shop and we'll fix broken engines and talk about life. Just like we used to. Promise? Ember asked. Promise. They stayed on the balcony for another hour talking about everything and nothing. Eventually, Ember and Frost had to leave for their evening lessons. Jake hugged them both goodbye and watched them go. Then he went back inside his workshop. He looked around at the amazing tools and equipment. He thought about the incredible journey that brought him here. A simple mechanic from a frontier colony world, now living in the palace of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. It was ridiculous. It was impossible. But it had happened, and it all started because he made one simple choice on a rainy night 5 years ago. He chose to help someone in need. He chose kindness over convenience. He chose to care when it would have been easier to walk away. Jake sat down at his workbench and picked up a broken circuit board someone had brought in. He pulled out his tools and started working. The familiar motions calmed him. This was who he was. Not a noble or an advisor or a hero, just a mechanic who tried to do the right thing. But sometimes doing the right thing changed the whole universe. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness created ripples that spread across the stars. Jake had learned that lesson well. And somewhere in the palace, Empress Kalara watched through a window as the human mechanic worked in his shop. She smiled, grateful that her children had found someone so pure of heart. The empire was vast and powerful, but it needed more people like Jake Sullivan. People